Every new day is a fight for survival. Run or be crushed. Fangs and claws tear through every fragile hope. One creature's death feeds another's life. A merciless cycle that never stops turning. In northern Botswana lies the Okavango Delta, a river that never reaches the sea, spilling instead into the Kalahari and drowning the desert in its own slow flood. No other river system on Earth ends quite this way, vanishing into sand rather than surrendering to any ocean. Each year, the flood arrives months after the rain that caused it. Water traveling slowly enough that residents can track its advance for weeks before it reaches their own stretch of the delta. Satellite images show the flood front creeping forward like a living thing, claiming dry ground one day at a time. By the time it fully arrives, the landscape beneath it has already transformed twice over. Dawn breaks over one of 1,000 narrow channels cutting through the delta. Mist still clings to the reed beds, burning off slowly as the sun climbs. Reed cormorants dry their wings on a half-submerged log nearby, indifferent to the drama about to unfold just meters away. A herd of lekwa, antelope built for water as much as land, splashes across a shallow crossing, hooves throwing up sheets of silver spray that catch the first light. They can outrun almost anything on solid ground. In water, they're even faster. Powerful hindquarters built for exactly this terrain. Muscles adapted for pushing through resistance no ordinary antelope ever has to fight against. But something has been closing the distance behind them for over 1 kilometer, and it isn't slowing down. The African wild dog holds the highest hunting success rate of any large predator in Africa, and nowhere is that more true than in the Okavango. Dr. Tiko McNutt, founder of the Botswana Predator Conservation Trust, has tracked packs through this delta for decades. And his research shows something the open savanna rarely offers: water itself as a weapon. The pack doesn't chase in a straight line, it splits, driving the herd exactly where the deepest channel waits. Each dog reading the terrain as fluently as it reads the herd itself. Painted coats, no two pattern quite the same, flash between the reeds as the pack fans out into position. The lekwa's speed advantage evaporates the moment the water reaches its chest. Wild dogs, lighter and less burdened by heavy horns, keep moving nearly at full pace, legs churning through water that has suddenly become the herd's greatest weakness rather than its refuge. The lead dog closes first, and within seconds, the rest of the pack arrives. Kill finished in the shallows in under a minute, exactly where the chase was always designed to end. Water that saved this herd 1,000 times before finally works against it. But the feast doesn't last. A shape the size of a small boat rises out of the reeds nearby. Water sheeting off a hide built like armor. The hippo wasn't hunting. It was resting less than 50 meters from where the pack chose to kill, and in the Okavango. That's a mistake. No predator gets to make twice. It doesn't eat meat. It doesn't need to. One furious charge sends the entire pack scattering into the grass. Dogs that just brought down prey twice their size, fleeing from something that never once opened its jaws to bite them. Within seconds, the dogs are gone, vanished into the reeds, leaving the hippo alone with a kill it has no interest in eating at all, simply guarding water it considers its own. Nothing in the Okavango, not even Africa's most efficient hunter, outranks a hippo defending its stretch of water. When the channel falls quiet again and the pack has regrouped somewhere downstream, the delta settles back into the rhythm that governs every square meter of it. Water. And who controls it? Egrets return to the shallows. A fish eagle calls somewhere overhead, unbothered by the chaos that passed through minutes earlier. The hippo doesn't rule through appetite. It rules through sheer physical consequence. An adult male can weigh nearly 3,000 kilograms. Jaws capable of snapping a wooden boat in half without much effort at all. A bite force that dwarfs almost every other mammal on this river system, canines nearly half a meter long doing most of the damage. By day it rests submerged, only eyes and nostrils breaking the surface, defending a stretch of channel with a territorial intensity that has made it, by most measures, the most dangerous large animal in Africa. Responsible for more human deaths each year than lions, leopards, and crocodiles combined. Fishermen and villagers along this delta learn early which stretches of water belong to which bull. Knowledge passed down as carefully as any hunting skill. By night, it hauls itself out and walks kilometers inland, grazing on grass no aquatic creature could ever reach. Redrawing the same paths through the bush night after night until they become permanent trails other species use for years afterward. Those same paths, cut fresh by thousands of kilograms of moving hippo, become channels that guide floodwater deeper into parts of the delta the main river could never reach unassisted. A form of engineering repeated across the entire system by thousands of individual animals doing the same nightly walk. Nothing here questions its right of way. Nothing needs to. Not far from where the wild dogs fled, the same pack regroups beneath a stand of sausage trees. And the reason they succeed as often as they do becomes obvious the moment they stop moving. African wild dogs vote before they hunt. Researchers have documented through a series of sneezes exchanged in a tight circle. Pack committing to a hunt only once enough members have signaled agreement. One of the closest things to a democratic decision recorded anywhere in the animal kingdom. A dominant pair's sneeze can carry more weight in that vote than a subordinate's, but even then, enough votes from the rest of the pack can override it. Success rates here climb close to 80%, several times higher than a lion pride's, and the difference comes down entirely to structure. Every dog plays a role, relay runners trading the lead so no single animal exhausts itself, and food gets shared with total fairness once a kill is made. Pups and injured members fed first. No dominance hierarchy deciding who eats and who waits. A dog that stayed behind to guard the den still gets fed through regurgitation once the hunters return. An entire pack's welfare guaranteed regardless of who did the actual running. Raw individual strength never built this pack's reputation. An organization where nobody gets left behind did. Deeper into the flooded grass, something else has solved this landscape by refusing to leave the water at all. The sitatunga's hooves splay wide with every step, long and spread almost like natural snowshoes, distributing its weight across mud that would swallow any other antelope to the knees within a few strides. Elongated, flexible toes spread even further apart than a lekwis. An adaptation so specific to this exact terrain that a sitatunga struggles noticeably on the rare occasions it has to cross firm. Dry ground, its shaggy, slightly oily coat sheds water quickly, letting it move between submersion and dry land without carrying extra weight in soaked fur. When a predator gets too close, it doesn't run, it sinks, submerging its entire body until only the nostrils break the surface. Holding perfectly still for as long as the threat remains nearby, sometimes for many minutes at a stretch. Heart rate slowing to conserve the oxygen it needs to keep waiting. No lion, no wild dog, no leopard follows it into that kind of ground. None of them built for the mud and reeds this antelope calls home. Even crocodiles, the one predator genuinely at home in this water, rarely hunt inside the dense reed beds a sitatunga retreats into. The sitatunga didn't just adapt to the swamp, it made the swamp its fortress. Territory every other predator on this delta has simply learned to write off entirely. Above the water after dark, something with the wrong wing beat for a hummingbird moves low over a quiet channel. Pell's fishing owl is one of the only owl species on Earth that hunts fish rather than land prey. And almost everything about a typical owl's design has been abandoned to make that possible. Its legs are bare, not feathered, and its feet carry small spiny scales built to grip a slippery, struggling fish rather than the fur of a rodent. Talons curve sharper and longer than those of most owls its size. Built specifically for a prey type that fights hard against being lifted clear of the water. It doesn't need silent flight the way a mouse-hunting owl does. Sound doesn't travel through water the way it does through dry grass. So evolution simply stripped away a feature every other owl on the continent depends on. Because down here, it was never necessary in the first place. Wing beats that would betray a barn owl instantly mean nothing to a fish that can't hear them coming at all. And in a stretch of flooded grassland barely large enough to matter to anyone but the birds that depend on it. A small, elegant wading bird waits for a very specific number on the delta's own internal clock. The slaty egret breeds only when floodwaters rise to a precise level. No higher, no lower. And very nearly the entire global population of this species exists within the Okavango system and nowhere else on the planet. Estimates place the total wild population at only a few thousand individuals. An entire species compressed into one seasonal wetland. Too little flood, and there's no shallow water to feed chicks in. Too much. And nesting sites disappear beneath the surface entirely. This is one of the narrowest survival windows of any bird in Africa. An entire species betting its future on a single number the Delta decides fresh every single year. A number it has no control over and no way to influence. Arrived at by rainfall that fell hundreds of kilometers away months earlier. 5 completely different relationships with the same flooding, retreating water. A hippo whose sheer size makes it untouchable. Pack whose real weapon is a democracy of sneezes and shared meals. An antelope that turned the swamp into an unbreachable stronghold. An owl that shed nearly everything that makes an owl. And a bird whose entire future rides on a flood arriving at exactly the right height. None of these answers would work handed to any of the others. A hippo's bulk would drown in the sitatunga's soft mud, and an owl's bare legs would be useless anywhere but open water. Strength here was never a single currency. It was 5 separate currencies, each one worthless outside its own particular corner of the Delta. Follow those same channels far enough and one more family reveals just how differently animals sharing an identical name can actually live. 5 kingfisher species share this delta, and one of them has never caught a fish in its life. Why would a bird named for exactly one hunting method abandon that method completely? The giant kingfisher, the largest on the continent, dives for exactly what its name promises. Plunging from an overhanging branch to seize fish and even crabs in a single committed strike. Powerful enough to take prey considerably larger than what its smaller relatives ever attempt. Its size lets it work deeper water and heavier prey than any other kingfisher on this river system. An entire tier of the food chain effectively reserved for this one species alone. Prey too large or too dangerous for any of its smaller relatives to bother pursuing. A single successful dive can bring up a catch that would take a malachite kingfisher an entire day of smaller strikes to match in total weight. The malachite kingfisher works the same water on a miniature scale, barely the size of a sparrow, brilliant blue and orange. Perching low over the shallows and dropping onto small fish and aquatic insects that larger kingfishers wouldn't bother pursuing. Its size that would be a disadvantage almost anywhere else becomes an advantage here. Letting it exploit prey too small to interest its bigger cousins. An entire miniature economy of tiny fish and larvae going almost entirely uncontested by anything else on the channel. Perched motionless for long stretches, it can look more like a piece of jewelry left on a reed stem than a living hunter. Pied kingfisher solve fishing without ever needing a perch at all. It hovers directly over open water, wings beating in place with extraordinary control, holding its position steady before folding and dropping straight down onto a target below. This single skill lets it hunt over water with no overhanging branches anywhere nearby, opening up entire stretches of open channel the other perch-dependent kingfishers on this river can never touch. Water far from any tree or reed bed that would otherwise go completely unhunted, where every other kingfisher on this list needs a branch. This one carries its own perch with it, suspended in midair on nothing but wing beats. The woodland kingfisher carries the family name and almost none of the family habit. It rarely goes near water at all, hunting insects, lizards, and small snakes from perches in dry woodland well away from any channel. Its loud, ringing call more associated with the arrival of the rainy season than with anything resembling a river. Genetically a kingfisher through and through, behaviorally almost a different bird entirely. One that inherited a name built around a lifestyle it abandoned generations ago. Its bright plumage, the only visible clue left connecting it back to its fishing relatives. And the gray-headed kingfisher pushes that same logic furthest of all. Living in open grassland far from any permanent water. Feeding almost exclusively on grasshoppers and beetles kicked up from dry ground. Sometimes kilometers from the nearest channel, its blue only shows at the wings in flight. The rest of its plumage suited to grassland rather than the flash of color that helps its riverbound relatives stand out against water and reed. Two members of one family walked away from water altogether, proof that a name assigned once, centuries ago, was never a life sentence for every bird that inherited it. One family, 5 very different addresses, and a split straight down the middle between those still tied to the river and those that left it behind completely. Evolution never asked every kingfisher to keep fishing. It only asked each one to find ground nobody else in the family was already using. Whether that ground happened to be underwater, over it, or nowhere near it at all. A name, in the end, describes where a family started. It was never a promise about where every branch of it would end up. None of these species, the hippo, the wild dogs, the sitatunga, the fishing owl, the slaty egret, and 5 kingfishers solving the same delta 5 different ways, ever accounted for the one force now threatening the very water this entire system depends on. The hippo's nightly grazing paths cut channels that help distribute floodwater deeper into the delta than the river could reach alone. A form of engineering no human survey team ever designed. The wild dog caps antelope populations that would otherwise overwhelm this fragile grazing land within a handful of seasons. The sitatunga disperses wetland plant seeds with every step through the swamp. Work that keeps the vegetation base of this entire ecosystem renewing itself. The delta's birds, kingfishers, the fishing owl, the slaty egret together. Hold fish and insect populations in careful balance across a system with nowhere else for that balance to come from. Even the smallest of them, a malachite kingfisher barely the size of a fist, plays a role no larger bird on this river is built to fill. Upstream dam and water extraction proposals in Angola and Namibia threaten the very flood pulse. This entire delta depends on a system where every species in this story ultimately answers to water that begins falling as rain hundreds of kilometers beyond Botswana's own borders. In countries with no obligation to consider what happens downstream. A delta that took millions of years to shape itself around a predictable flood now depends on political negotiations between three separate governments. It has no say in whatsoever. Climate change is making that annual flood increasingly unpredictable. A direct threat to a bird like the slaty egret whose entire breeding success depends on the flood arriving at nearly the exact same height every single year. A margin already this narrow before any additional disruption. Poaching continues to threaten African wild dogs across their range. One of the most endangered large carnivores on the continent, despite ranking among its most successful hunters. A reminder that efficiency in the wild has never been protection against a wire snare or a bullet. None of this trends the way a burning rainforest does, but there is real ground for hope. Botswana's community-based natural resource management model is widely regarded as one of the most successful conservation frameworks anywhere in Africa. Giving local communities direct financial stakes in keeping this delta intact, rather than treating conservation as a rule imposed from outside. Villages that once saw wildlife purely as competition for grazing land now see tourism revenue tied directly to how many wild dogs, hippos, and kingfishers remain on their section of the delta. Cross-border cooperation between Botswana, Namibia, and Angola is beginning to treat the Okavango's water as a shared responsibility rather than three separate national problems. A slow but real shift in how this basin's future gets negotiated. And the Botswana Predator Conservation Trust's decades of tracking data continue to shape protection strategy for the delta's wild dog population directly, turning years of field observation into policy that changes outcomes on the ground, rather than sitting unused in a research archive. For millions of years, this delta balanced itself around a flood that arrives, spreads, and recedes with almost clockwork precision. Every species inside it built around trusting that rhythm completely, one thread, the hippo's nightly path, the wild dog's structure, the egret's narrow window, and the system doesn't fail all at once. It frays, one broken dependency at a time, until a landscape built entirely on trust in water stops being able to trust it at all. Most people assume a delta this vast has water to spare. The truth runs the other way. Every drop that reaches this basin has already traveled hundreds of kilometers through other countries first. And for the first time in this delta's entire history, the one variable it never evolved to negotiate with is us.